Okay. I think we are live now. If you can hear us and see us okay, let me know in the comments that we are coming through loud and clear. Send us a message to say whereabouts you are watching this stream. I would love to hear, make sure that we are coming through loud and clear before we get started on today's session, which I'm very excited about. So let me know that you can hear and see us okay, and we'll get started very shortly. If you can see us, let me know in the chat, in the comments, whichever platform you're in. Let me know where you are tuning in from today, whereabouts in the world, and which platform are you on. I'm just going to send a quick message to my assistant to say problem on a YouTube stream to let her check that out, see what the issue is. But very excited about today's session. Let us know that you can see and hear us okay, so we can get started on today's session. Just want to make sure I'm coming through loud and clear for you. So if you can see and hear us, let me know in the chat. Yeah, it's been a while since I've used StreamYard. They think I've changed a few things. But anyway, what I'm going to do is there's probably a little lag. So if we're coming through, it'll be great if you could put in something in the comments so we can see that you are here. But otherwise, any questions that you have throughout the course of today's session, put it in the chat and I will put it to Hector. But first of all, let me welcome my guest today. Hello, Hector. How are you doing today?
Hey, Risa, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Very well. Pleasure. So in today's session, we are going to go through some practical uses of AI. AI, of course, is all around us these days. It is advancing at an exponential rate. It's impossible to keep on top of what's going on in the world of AI at the moment. So I thought, why not invite somebody who's in the thick of this, who has been using AI in his firm, who has been actively sharing stuff that he is doing in his firm on his YouTube channel, which is where I first came across him. And I thought it'd be great for him to share from a practice owner's perspective how he is practically using it. So the actual use cases for us in our firms and potentially where it is going, so we can use it for something of benefit to us, something of relevance to us as well. So without further ado, let's get straight into it, Hector. This is obviously titled 5 Practical AI Use Cases for Accounting Workflows to Save Time. But if you want to give us a quick intro first in terms of about you for my audience and a little bit about your background and how you got into the going so deep into AI in the first place, I think that'd be good context setter.
Sure. So I'm a US-based CPA. I've been working heavily and deeply in the world of QuickBooks for about 16 years or so. Was big into QuickBooks Desktop, mostly for inventory, manufacturing type of stuff. And then when QuickBooks Online came by, a lot of our clients moved to QuickBooks Online, and we transformed our practice to be mostly cloud-centric. So we supported QuickBooks Online quite a bit. And as some of the audience members here that might use QuickBooks Online have already seen some built-in sort of AI tools inside of QuickBooks Online. So they're kind of seeing how pretty slowly, to be fair, but they're starting to see how all this artificial intelligence technology starts seeping into the sort of the day-to-day workflows. When I first saw a video on ChatGPT, I would say like December of 2022, if I want to say, or January of 2023, I was just completely fascinated by it. Just conceptually, just what this is going to do and what this is going to mean. I just knew it was going to be transformative, and again, most of the world knew that as well. So I wasn't discovering something particularly different, but I immediately started thinking, well, what would this look like in my world? So I created a ChatGPT account. Obviously, I started with the free one. Immediately after they had the paid one, I jumped to that ship really quick. Mm-hmm. And then when all the other competitors, you had Copilot and Claude and Google, I basically, AI chatbots are a line item in my P&L now. So I pay for all of them because I'm testing them back and forth. And what I first started to do is to say, you know what, I'm going to go on YouTube and put up a couple of videos of me literally just experimenting with this. So the first major experiment I did, which is still extremely practical, and let's call this the first practical use case,
Sure.
is to help me prepare for a client advisory call. So I took a P&L and a balance sheet. I obfuscated the real company name, right? Just call it ABC company or whatever. And then I pasted it into ChatGPT and said, okay, I'm a CPA. I've been working with this client for years. Here's the profit and loss and balance sheet for the last 90 days, the last 3 months. We have a quarterly call where I have to give them some advice, not just answering whatever questions they may have about the numbers. So I want you to anticipate those questions for me, but also give you some advice about how to operate the business better, how to think about tax planning and all that stuff. And you put that into ChatGPT, and then even the first version of it, it was just really truly amazing. And as you see that the models get better and better, you see that it gets better at not just looking at the information that's in the report, but cross-referencing that with the context. So I started experimenting with, this client has seasonality. So summertime is pretty slow. And here's a review for January through March. Now give me some of my talking points. So you see the talking points completely changed because it had some new context. So as the models get better and better, it starts really understanding how to add the context into the suggestion. So I would say that was kind of like the first major thing that I did with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, and I was completely sold on the concept.
Amazing. Fantastic. So that was the start of your journey. You started to see some initial results. You're obviously a lot deeper into the journey now. So if we drill into the use cases that you are actually using now, and if you are able to share your screen and talk us through some of these, I think that would be of real use and benefit to fellow practice owners wondering. So the advisory is one, but yeah, if we could go into the other five, that would be amazing.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen here.
Go for it.
Give me a second. Share screen, entire screen. Boom. You should be able to see my screen now. Would you confirm that?
Can indeed. Yep.
Okay. So I don't know if your audience is mostly non-American. So I'm just gonna make the assumption that I have to explain certain things about the United States tax system. So I'll give you a quick example here. So as a practitioner, one of the things that I deal with a lot, and I know this is a pretty long thing that I'm gonna do, but is deal with customers getting bad tax advice from their cousins or from TikTokers or something they read online or something that they feel is a tax deduction, or because they heard Trump say it or whatever. It doesn't matter. People are gonna they try to look at the tax code or tax concepts only from their lens, right? So some of those areas are home office deduction. So in the United States, you can take a percentage of your home, and if it's dedicated for business use, you can get a home office deduction. In America, you can take your own personal vehicle and use it for business, or you can take a business vehicle and have hybrid use. And there's all sorts of rules in terms of what can be deducted, right? So going to restaurants, the startup cost of the business, depreciation. There's something called Section 179, which basically allows you, and this is more of a politics thing, but depending on who the politicians in charge are, they want to encourage more capital expenditure, so they'll allow you to 100% depreciate or not. There's something called self-employment tax. There's business travel, retirement plan, health insurance, something that you guys don't deal with too much in the UK, business interest or business debt, something called qualified business income, which is a special tax code thing, business losses, inventory write-offs, educational expenses, independent contractor. So basically, I wanted to have, not just for me, because I have 16 years of experience doing tax returns, but mostly like for my new team. My new team knows tax, prepares tax returns, but they don't have talking points, right? Like they don't know how to immediately answer a customer saying, hey, I heard so and so is deductible, therefore I'm going to send you the information, please make sure you put that in my tax return. So generally, my employees with a little less experience, they kind of get freaked out and they go, oh, okay, we got to get Hector involved. I don't know. It sounds weird. Okay. So you can do something that's just very sort of deep, which is called a deep research. And a deep research is when you go into ChatGPT and you must be in the paid version of it, and then you tell it to perform an analysis or to give you detailed information about a particular concept, and you must click on this little button here called deep research. If you are in the $200 a month version of ChatGPT, yes, $200 a month version, you can do unlimited deep research. If you're in the $20 or the $25 a month version, you can only do 10 per month. So it gives you kind of an idea. But for accountants, deep research is kind of a game changer. So basically, that was my prompt. So I give it a bunch of like sort of the most commonly misused and misunderstood tax deductions, perform a deep research, and then I tell it, use it within the context of Section 162, which is a section in the tax code that basically says all expenses that are ordinary and necessary can be deducted, right? It could be so. And the U.S. tax code is very ambiguous. It literally says ordinary and necessary, and it doesn't really even define what those terms are. So it's actually done on purpose. So there's some ambiguity there, and these things can be settled by an auditor, by tax court, and in many ways, that's kind of how America works, right? America is very much into the sort of the honest code, right? Say, hey, we'll give you a general guideline, and then you kind of like do the right thing, and hopefully, in average, most people do the right thing, and then we'll be okay, right? Type of stuff, right? So that's the challenge that we have. So I'm just giving you the premise. So ChatGPT, before doing the deep research, it will ask you something like, are you looking for an analysis of common misuses under Section 162? Or do you want case law examples, IRS audit triggers, compliance recommendations? Let me know what kind of report you want. And I basically just said, I just want to be able to have talking points for my clients. I'm a CPA. So I was very vague in terms of what I'm asking it to do. Okay. So then it goes into deep research mode. And this could take anywhere between a couple of minutes all the way to 30 minutes. I did one at the very beginning that took like 40 minutes. So you just kind of have to like go get some coffee and come back, type of thing. And then when it comes back, it creates a very, very detailed report. And the other thing that's really interesting is the report is not just detailed, it's also cited. Okay. So it starts by explaining, what I just explained to you. Business owners can generally deduct ordinary and necessary expenses when carrying a business. And then there's an IRS link with a regulation or code section that takes you straight to it. But as you go a little bit deeper, it does the analysis for all the 10 or 15 things that I give it. So it goes with a home office deduction, and then it goes into a very detailed explanation of what the home office deduction is, some of the ways it could be allowed, what the proration system works, some common mistakes that that the typical taxpayers have, some audit triggers, like people that kind of like push it to the edges, and like what could be a challenge, some best practices, right? Like sort of make sure you have a diagram or calculation of the percentage of your home, and then it did the analysis for every single one of them, again with citations for each one, so I know which page to go back and say, okay, this is where I got the information from. So now I'll take something like this and I put it into our document repository in our CRM system or whatever, and then when anytime a customer comes in and goes, hey, I'm trying to deduct XYZ meal or whatever, I'm just instructing my team to just come here, literally grab this, copy and paste, and boom, and say, hey, from our internal database, or the way our firm manages this type of request, we go by this this concept. Okay. But there what's really cool about this is you can actually sort of repurpose this in multiple layers and multiple dimensions. So I can get just that piece of information and then click here where it says reply. And then I can contextually chat with ChatGPT only within the limited content that it was given to me. So I can tell ChatGPT, I have a client that bought season tickets to the LA Dodgers baseball games, and every single game religiously he takes a new customer, comma, they do talk shop during the baseball games. However, um, he does quite enjoy this from a personal standpoint, comma, he put this in his QuickBooks and wants to make it deductible, period. Okay. So That's it. I naturally just chatting with my ChatGPT, again, within the limit context of that information that I used from the deep research, and I can add some more. Hold on, give me a second. So help me draft a letter that gives him a suggestion on what to do or not to do with this particular deduction, and give me some direct citations for reference. Okay, so I'm adding a little bit. I'm adding that second piece. So first I'm saying, this is what the client did. This is what they're trying to do. This is some context. Like, he enjoys the games personally. He's a big fan or whatever. He put it as a deduction, and then help me draft a quick letter to give my suggestion. Again, within the context of the previously done deep research that is always well cited. So this second piece is not deep research. So the answer would be fairly quickly. You will also notice that I am on ChatGPT 4.5, which is currently the slowest of all the code. So you see that it starts drafting the stuff kind of slow compared to the other models, but the 4.5, it is ChatGPT's most empathetic, or the most human-like, so to speak.
Mhm.
So the wording is it's gonna land softly, I guess, is kind of the
Yeah.
point. So here it goes. So it starts explaining meals versus entertainment. It cites a particular law. It says it's no longer deductible, and even though you're speaking about business, the cost of the tickets cannot be deducted. Here's an IRS reference in a particular publication. Here's meals at the games. It says, okay, however, any meals that are separate than the ticket price, those can be deducted because you are having a business discussion. However, they cannot be lavish or extravagant, which, by the way, the prices of food in those type of things are lavish or extravagant, but the quality of the food isn't. But and then we have the particular IRS tax topic that you can use as a reference, and then just some additional tips, right? So, like, you just imagine. Here's the last piece is really cool, is how to explain it to your clients. Remember that in the original context, I said, give me the talking points. So it understands in the broader sense of the chat that the ultimate purpose of this is to help me have the talking points. So it tells me, quote, I understand taking customers to adult your games is valuable for relationship building, but IRS strictly disallows deducting cost of tickets since the 2018 law change. However, meals enjoyed during these outings remain deductible 50%. If separately documented, not excessive, make sure to maintain detailed records for each meal, who attended the business discussion to safely preserve the deduction. Is good to keep records to avoid IRS scrutiny. So it's really neat. It gives me tax code, it gives me technical aspects, and then at the end it gives me the particular talking point. So that's a combination between using deep research and then contextualizing deep research with whatever particular goal you have.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's amazing, and I can see the immediate use case for us here in the UK as well. In terms of similar to the IRS, we have the HMRC, and the HMRC have manuals where they go through their interpretation of the tax code. So you can tell it to just draw from the manuals to give you the kind of the most sensible interpretation, depending on where you want it from. Actually, because I noticed you didn't actually direct it at the beginning to say only give me sources from the IRS. It itself only gave you sources from the IRS. Is that right?
So yeah, so good question. It actually didn't. The first few I showed you was only the IRS, but if
Mm-hmm.
we go back, we'll go back a couple to see if it gives me sources from somewhere else. But you will find that in this deeper, like for example, this one for inventory write-offs, I
No,
guess it
that's right.
couldn't find an IRS topic, and it went to this website called Loophole Louie. Okay, well, I don't think you should get your tax advice from a website called Loophole something, right? But you could have done, so that's a good point. In the deep research, you can say, only give me
Yeah.
treasury.gov, irs.gov, whatever particular websites as the sources. So you can actually direct it. So I did direct it. And, I'm going to say it was on purpose to make sure that we get into this discussion, but maybe I actually literally forgot to direct it. I should have done that. But at the same time, it's also important to see
Yeah.
the websites that are not direct IRS or Treasury or HMRC.
HMRC.
Yeah, because that's the stuff that your clients are reading off the web. So I think it's
Yeah.
also important to see what are those talking points that the
Mm.
clients are reading off the web. But I got to tell you something. I'll give you some inside baseball in in America. So like right now, if you support the current president, anything that he says is it's tax law in your mind. And if you don't support the president, everything that he says is BS and it's not real, right? So what ends up happening is people don't really, for the most part, do actual research on like law and what's legal. They just basically conform to their predetermined disposition on what they think about the politician that says this particular thing about tax. And in America, tax is very, very politics oriented. Like tax policy is really driven by politics. Like for example, there's and this actually could flow through the next tip, but I'll let you comment about that if you want to. But a lot of the discussions about what the new, and there is probably going to be a big tax law change in the United States this year, just because of politics. But it's going to be mostly based on what one man decided to say one day in some speech, and that might drive the entire discussion about what's going to happen with our tax system. Like I'll give you an example: tariffs, right? So the discussion of tariffs is happening in the United States. There are some sort of semi-implemented tariff systems. The politicians are actually talking about eliminating income tax and replacing it with a tariff-based system. I mean, that completely upends and changes our revenue system. Now, that's unlikely to happen, but it also opened the discussion to national sales tax, which in the UK you have value-added tax, which is kind of like a national sales tax. In the United States, we have no idea what value-added tax is. I mean, I do. A few of us that have traveled overseas and have paid it and kind of have talked to accountants overseas kind of understand the concepts. But in the US, there isn't such a thing. The US is very, very much funded by income tax, not so much by consumption. So this has opened up the discussions from a political standpoint, which again seeps through our clients, and then our clients call us saying, hey, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? And if we just ignore it and say, you know what, it's just BS, it's just political talk, they might not believe you. They might not believe that you're on it. They might not believe that you have your finger on the pulse. So in today's age where so much information is available, half of it is BS, half of it is real. And even if people are just looking at the real, they're looking at so much of it that they're overwhelmed with facts. And then they just look at, the little things that, again, that they conform with, that they understand. It makes it very challenging for us. So for us to be true advisors, we kind of have to be one step ahead of our clients and kind of anticipate what are the questions they're going to ask, which is why I like, just having ChatGPT give me both, right? The authoritative sources and kind of like what's going on, what's the chatter up in the web.
Absolutely. No, that's very useful, and I'd probably take it one step further in terms of getting this data. But with my marketing head on, I'd be asking it to say, right now, can you draft me a social post on one of these using a powerful hook, for example. So for those of you listening, this is not just about getting access to the research, but get access to the research and then use it to help you to generate content, which I'm doing a lot of at the moment. I'm using Claude. Claude is very good at copywriting, and we're building up my own style guide by plugging it with all the posts that I've already done, all the stuff that I've already created. So now when I'm generating posts, it's got to that point where I can't differentiate whether it's me written it or it's AI written it. So I challenge my team, because I've always written my own posts, but I challenge my team that you can use AI to draft my posts, but I'm not going to post any until I see that it's as good as what I have been writing. And it's got to that point now where it's drafting posts because it's been plugged with all the stuff that I've done, where it's on a par. And if not, arguably potentially even better than what I'm writing.
Yeah. So let's do that. So let's grab this one: independent contractor and employee classification. I'm going to go down and grab all this stuff down here, and I'm going to copy that. And this is a common practice that I personally use. The folks in my office, not so much, right? Because I've only given them one AI to work with. But what I do quite a bit is I'll grab the research from one, paste it on the other. So it's a good thing that you mentioned. So ChatGPT was first to market. To me, gives you the most bang for the buck in terms of everything that it can do. So the most complete AI tool for $20 a month or whatever is ChatGPT. You have multiple models to work with. You can it can interpret data. It can do some code, although Claude is actually better at coding. It's a different conversation we can have as well. But it in terms of like suggesting people how should they get started, it should be ChatGPT 100%. However, Claude is better for writing, period. Okay. So I would grab, this information, paste it into Claude, right? So the same deep research that I did in ChatGPT, because I cannot do deep research in Claude. Okay. Claude doesn't have web searching capabilities. It can search within its own internal database, but it doesn't cite sources, right? And it can cite sources from a generic standpoint. It can say, yeah, I looked at this document, but it won't give you the link to the document so you can confirm it, right? So like it will just take it will be a lot more work to try to figure out what sources Claude is using. But for writing, Claude is better. Help me write an article for LinkedIn where I suggest my clients to seek advice from a professional before making the decision of hiring independent contractors, because the context that I pasted here explains that in some cases the IRS can reclassify independent contractors as employees, and I want to make sure that they are fully informed of when they can do that and when they can't. So some context before I hit send here is in America, having an independent contractor is way cheaper than having an employee from so many deep perspectives, right? So most business owners try to get away, so to speak, with having an independent contractor. And in this case, I'm just asking Claude to help me write an article, like you said, like a social post, right? So I'm using the context already from my deep research that I did, which already makes sure that it contains the most, the newest, the most up-to-date information, and then I have it write an article for me. And typically, like you said, you go back and you read these articles and you check, would I have written something like this? And you would be pretty amazed, that this is probably something better than what I would have written. Now, one bit of a warning. ChatGPT and Claude and all these AIs are infamous for using particular words. Okay, like they like saying in today's moving environment, in today's flexible work environment. Like they introduce a lot of they introduce the stuff very sort of generic like this. In today's fast moving world, in today's fast moving accounting
and supercharged
environment.
and all this
Yeah.
kind of words.
Yeah. So just I think that a lot of people have noticed that. And then I would particularly change the intro. Like if you're looking for automation means I don't want to write this by hand, right? Of course. But also you're gonna sign your name next to this thing. And if you're a professional, you should stand by every single word that comes out of this. So obviously you are going to read it. You're gonna make sure that it's accurate. But most importantly, most of the time I change the intro and just write the intro from scratch. That kind of makes sure that it doesn't feel like it was completely AI written.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do. What I do is we have quite comprehensive within Claude. You can actually upload documents in a project that it will look at. So we've got a style guide, we've got a blacklisted words as well. So we've tell it specific words that we know it keeps using. Do not ever use these words. So you kind of build that up as you see individual words that you don't like, put it into your blacklist, and it will never use them again. Okay, let's move on, Hector, because we've got a lot to cover and not that much time. So if we can swiftly move on to the next one then that you had for us. Number 2 was to do with?
Okay, so I'm going to show you one. I'm going to open up a chart of accounts here, okay? So let's say this is the chart of accounts that a particular company has, right? So I happen to have it in Excel. This chart of accounts has account name, has account number, account type, account description. You can even leave it with the description out. What we can do is we can do things like load the chart of accounts. And so I'm going to use a faster model. I'll use ChatGPT 4.0. I'm going to load the chart of accounts, and I'm going to say, this is the chart of accounts from my QuickBooks file. I want you to keep this as context as I'm going to ask you some questions about some expenditures, and you're going to tell me which account to classify it with. Okay, so simple like that. Just loaded a chart of accounts in there, and then I'm telling it this is my context, right? Now you do have to give it a chance, because anytime you upload data, it goes into analysis mode. and then the analysis actually runs code inside of it to try to like sort of codify the data in a way that it can understand it a little bit later. So here we go. So now we started by loading the chart of accounts, and then I can say I'm gonna do something else. Okay, so I'm actually gonna go multiple layers here. Okay, so I have a bank statement, and then I'm gonna ask it to go and break out some of these expenses for me, and then put them in a category. Okay, so we're going 2 layers deep here. One is we loaded a chart of accounts, and second, we're gonna tell it to grab a bank statement. So I'm gonna upload the bank statement here. I'm gonna say parse out expenses from this bank statement and tell me how to categorize them based on my original chart of accounts. Sometimes I forget that I could talk to it. I type instead. So we're going to send that out. So basically, we have sort of 2 tasks happening at the same time. And this example is not like a sustainable example, so to speak. And what I mean by that is it will be up to the software companies for you to upload the bank statements and do all the stuff for you, right? Like it doesn't feel highly practical. And I know it's a little bit different than the title that we have, but this is what we have now, right? So this is a glimpse of the future. What will be practical is when your GL of choice, when your software of choice is using all these tools, okay? But unfortunately, they are not 100% at the moment. So then basically you see right here that it went in, and then based on the expenditures, it categorized some of these. Are they going to be 100% accurate? I mean, maybe not. But we wrote a check for rent. It put it into rent expenses. We wrote a check where it said petty cash. It put it in the petty cash account. We wrote a check to Carlos Gomez in the memo said work, and then it's put it into contract labor. Went to the Aria Hotel in Las Vegas. It put it in travel and entertainment. Verizon, it put it in utilities. That's cell phone company. So it just gives you a kind of an idea of some of the things that you're expecting to be automated pretty soon with the AI.
Yeah, there's a question coming in around security, and I know this has been as accountants, very risk averse, worry about these things, and rightly so in terms of sensitive information. And I know different models have different levels of security. I know the team plan is more secure than the personal plan. So just quickly talk through that in the context of the question by Ronald around sensitive information.
So Ronald, I'm going to give you 2 answers, one that you're going to like and one that you're not going to like. Okay. So the first one is I'm going to log into a different ChatGPT here, and I'm going to just log into one of the free accounts here for a second. So I have a free account here that I set up. Okay. So when you go into the settings and you go into, I believe it's security, not security, sorry, data controls, there's a little option here that says improve the model for everyone, and it's currently turned off. I actually went in there and I turned it off. By default, ChatGPT and most of its competitors have it turned on so that everything that you upload, it's something that they could potentially look at to see if the model is spitting out accurate information. Now, I like to believe that no one really cares about this data and no one's using this data for a mischievous matter. But as an accountant that has been entrusted with our client's personal information, what I believe doesn't matter. Like, it has to be facts, right? But if you uncheck improve model for everyone, in theory, and there's a little learn more here about the privacy, you can go through and read it. In theory, they would not be looking at that data. However, I have not audited OpenAI. I do not work there, and I'm not looking at what those employees do day to day. So because I can't certify it, I cannot suggest you to ever upload any private information into any AI system, even if they claim not to, because it hasn't been the first time that a company has claimed to do something or not do something and has done the actual opposite. Okay. So my direct question to you, if you're asking me, Hector, is it safe to upload data into ChatGPT? My answer is I don't know. What I do know is that they have ways to opt out. And what they have told the public, so to speak, is that if you opt out of training the training it with your data, you should be fine. Now, when ChatGPT started, you had to be on the paid version to do that, but now even the free version allows you to opt out, but you do have to have an account set up, so at least I have to have your email. So Ronald, hopefully I gave you a part of the answer you like and part of the answer you don't like, but that has to be it. So the way I'm using, so your question is, well, then that's kind of, that makes it useless. So like a chart of accounts is
And
not
sorry,
personally.
Hector, to interrupt you there. There
Yeah.
is the team plan, which I believe is more secure than the personal one. And they have the SOC 2, whatever it is, which is a much higher security grading than a lot of other cloud software that we use as accountants. So as
So
cloud accountants, we use
so
practice management software like Carbon, etc. And there are, the SOC 2 is quite a high level security grading, is it not? And therefore, if you're on the team
it
plan,
it, it
then
is
the
it
stuff
is
is much more
true.
secure.
It is true. However, security and privacy are two different things, right? So and I think that often we misconstrue one to be the other. So for example, my data being secure means that I only have and I'm talking about Hector Garcia, only have access to it if I am an authorized user, if I have a password, if I'm part of the team that has access to it, et cetera, et cetera. Privacy means, and within the context of AI, means that the data that I'm loading into the AI is not being is now becoming the permanent database that someone else can see. Okay. And the reason why that's important is because we can publish things online, right? We publish our articles, we publish writing, we publish documents or whatever. Now, when somebody searches in Google, they can find your document, correct? And then there's multiple ways of publishing a document. You can publish a document in private mode, that's not searchable, that you have to log in securely to be able to access it, or you can publish it in private mode that only if you have the link or you know how to access it, you can do that. The challenge with AI is that when this first was released, and AI really is dependent on the human input to get better, to learn, so to speak, is that the biggest worry is if I load something in there, right, about the company that I work for, or the company that I work with, or my client, will that information now become part of the permanent database, and can someone inadvertently, by searching something, see data that they're not supposed to be? That's really that's the privacy piece, not so much the security piece. And the second layer to this is, can an employee of OpenAI, for the sake of like just improving the model, look at the information to make the data better? I'm not sure. I cannot answer that. So like again, the true way to secure that is to never post it, or don't use the web version of LLMs for this, which is actually one of the tips I wanted to give you as well. One of the tips I wanted to give you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, understood. Okay, and I guess there's a wider conversation with regards to all the other cloud software we use. Do people behind Zero, QuickBooks, Carbon, etc., can we have access to the data that we are putting in for clients? But that's a separate conversation. Anyway, let's move on to number 3. We haven't got very long now, Hector, so you're going to have to kind of condense these into shorter bursts. You mentioned something about supercharging spreadsheet and data analysis. Show us some wizardry as to what AI can do around spreadsheet manipulation.
Let's try to do two things at the same time here.
All right.
So I found this program called LM Studio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can download it for free. Like just search for LM Studio in Google, and then you can click here, it says Discover, and you can download any model, any of the models that are available. Okay, there's multiple models that are available. These are all open source models. So Gemma is Google's open source model. Q2Q is Quen's, Chinese company, by the way, model. DeepSeek is another Chinese company's open model. But so I can't demo this here because I'm on a live stream, but you could turn off your internet and actually test these things, and it works extremely well. Now, most of these work with the Llama engine, which was like sort of the world's first really large OpenAI model. So a lot of these things, the databases themselves work off the OpenAI engine, but they work with, so the engine itself is the one that kind of manages your queries, and then the model is where they get the information from. So this app, like LM Studio, and there's other ones. I think MSTY is another one. It's called MSTY.
Hector,
So
if you don't mind, I think we're going too deep into something. At the moment, we just want to give some wow moments to the audience, right? So get into something that will just wow us, to give us some good, practical use cases.
Not sure I could do that without that level of expectation. But hold on.
From what I've seen on YouTube, you've certainly got it. What about the spreadsheet and data analysis that you mentioned?
Yeah. So let me grab a spreadsheet. Okay. So here's a spreadsheet.
Accountants love their spreadsheet. So let's show them some spreadsheet wizardry.
Yeah, but the reason why we love spreadsheets is because Excel is the greatest software known to man, right? So for example, let's say I have a spreadsheet of a bunch of transactions I downloaded from my credit card. Okay. So generally what we would do is we would go and create a pivot table and add categories and group them together. So I'll do two things at once. So I'm gonna load the spreadsheet into LM Studio, which, by the way, to kind of like piggyback to Nicole's comment, which is the only way to protect the data is to work locally, not on a web. So I'm using LM Studio, which is the same thing as using ChatGPT or Claude. I'm loading the spreadsheet on it, and then I'll say, this is a spreadsheet of expenses I downloaded from my credit card, and I want you to create a profit and loss from it. Now, I actually haven't tested this inside Gemma, which is Google's open source engine, which I'm running through LM Studio, which is running locally, which is not searching the web. And by the way, okay, so this one can't. Oh, can it? Let me see. Can this one do it? Okay, this one can't do it. I may have to program it a little bit more to get it. It's actually just explaining to me how a P&L works, which is not useful to me at all. But I'll do it with ChatGPT. So I'll go back into ChatGPT and do it with ChatGPT. Give me a second. And I because you're kind of pressuring me with time, I can't go back and
no worries. You take your time. What I'm going to do is just reach out to the audience. And audience, where if you are here watching live, then put any questions. What would you like to see? What AI questions?
Well, I'm gonna just I'm gonna do the same thing. Okay, but I'm gonna do it in ChatGPT because I know it works.
Go for
this
it.
This is a credit card statement I downloaded from my bank, and I want you to help me create a quick profit and loss from it. Again, something that would in a spreadsheet, in a normal spreadsheet format, I would have to create a new column to create a category. So like that stuff that ChatGPT is going to do for me. It could be inaccurate, of course. Like categorizing expenses in the right category. It's not exactly an exact science. ChatGPT will do the best. We did an example earlier where it added categories, but now we're telling it to transform the data. Something that, again, it would take multiple steps. So let's go. So we'll go. So it gave me something very simple, like here's the total revenue, total expenses, and the net profit and loss. So we're going to tell it to expand a little bit more. Whoops. Use a standard chart of accounts from a small business to group the expenses into specific categories. Okay. So it doesn't always read your mind at first, right? I said, give me a P&L, but a P&L really is, sales versus expenses equals net income. So you have to tell it to expand a little bit more. So we'll wait for that to expand.
And just, it would be useful in terms of just talk through very quickly the different models as well, when you would use each. That might be handy.
You talk by models, you mean these here?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll go through that. So now we expanded a little bit more. So then we would have to tell her, you know what? don't give me so like ChatGPT gets lazy, right? It goes, you know what? Kind of like what an intern would do. Oh, you want categories? Here's 3 categories, right? So I would have to tell it, hey, don't give me miscellaneous, expand more, or load the chart of accounts and have it do it with the chart of accounts. So now you can have 2 different spreadsheets. Here's my expenses, here's my chart of accounts, cross them, and then build a P&L for me. So like there's something that you have to massage a little bit more for that. Okay, so in terms of the models, right? So I'll just start a new chat here. So the model that they have now, which is the fastest one, is the most generic model, is the 4.0. They have 4.0 with scheduled tasks, which I use every day. And what I do is I actually tell it, I do something like this. Create a daily email for me that searches the talking points that politicians are currently discussing about tax law changes for this year. Okay, so you do anything that says daily, weekly, monthly, and what it does is ChatGPT will create what's called a task, and a task is something that ChatGPT runs automatically every day, every week, whatever, at a particular time. It runs the task for you, gets the information, sends you an email, and then when you click on that email, it goes straight into that predetermined task. So the task runs in the background. It's still a chat, right? So it's not like you can't tell it go into my QuickBooks file and categorize the pending transactions for me. Like it can't like log into stuff, and that's a different discussion. There's actually a version of this called Operator that could, in theory, log into stuff, but you won't give me enough time for that. But there is something called Operator, and I'll show you here. Something called Operator that could do that. It's not very exciting in terms of what it can do now, but it's very exciting about what it can do in the future. So if we have time, we can go through that really quick, or you want to see something else?
Yeah, no, Operator is exciting. From what I've heard and seen, this is the new wave of AI agents that are going to come in and really shake up things. But just quickly before we do that, there's a question from Nicole coming in, if you can see it, regarding is there anything you can show us beyond analyzing a bank statement? For example, automating tasks we do for year-end accounts like accruals or prepayments. We're used to being able to analyze bank statements quickly.
Yeah. So no, I again, Nicole, because ChatGPT is only in a chat format, and these tasks are typically done in a journal entry in your GL type of stuff. I don't think there's a way. So I want to make a general statement here. AI is very exciting to see it progress, but I do not see in the next few months, maybe in the next 2-3 years, how it can actually replace a human operator. Like this operator that they added in the $200 version is the closest thing to that. So I'll kind of show you that. So I'm going to say, open a QuickBooks Online test file. Open a QuickBooks Online test. I'll just type it. Open a QBO test file so we can do some analysis. And the reason why I'm saying open up a QBO test file, particularly the discussion we were having earlier, which is I don't want to log into a real QuickBooks Online account via Operator because I still don't trust 100% that the data is 100% secure. Now, what's happening here is I gave it a very vague task. I said, open up a QBO test file. That doesn't mean anything, right? Like so like this is actually going through, Googling it, or in this case, Binging. I don't know who knows that. And it's trying to figure out what in the world did I mean by a QBO test file. It's actually doing the task on its own, right? So it's just going to go through multiple iterations of that, and I could ease its pain by giving it the link directly. But it's the only way to kind of showcase this without having to log into an actual QuickBooks Online file. Now, at some point in the near future, and I'm actually going to pause this for a second. I'm going to ease this pain, QBO test drive, and I'm going to find the the actual link for that. Let's go to QBO. So QuickBooks Online test drive. And where is my link for that? There we go. And then I'll copy and paste that in here. Let's just copy this, copy link address. I'm going to say use this link. And again, I need to contextualize this a little bit. In the near term, once operator is still an experiment, but in the near term, once operator is something that you can sort of build in your own browser, that doesn't have to use the web, so to speak. That operator actually creates a native browser in your computer that can do all these tasks. That's when this thing is gonna kind of sort of go to the next level. By the way, it has been instructed from ethical purposes not to pretend to be a robot, so you kind of have to like take control for a little bit. And in this case, if you were telling it log into my QuickBooks Online, you would have to um, go in there and log in, right? But like this thing, which by the way, I'm doing this is not doing it on its own. But this thing here is the captchas, right? The I'm not a robot things, which AI is more than capable of pretending to be a robot. By the way, find that very ironic and interesting. But they've actually built it in such a way. It looks like I'm a robot at this point. Yeah, look at that. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of verification. Well, that'd be very unimpressive if I could show you how to use AI, but I can't even beat the robot by myself. Look at this. It's crazy. Find it kind of interesting. Look at that. Wow, that's insane. Okay. Let's see. Well, Reza, I'm embarrassed. It looks like I can't pass a human test.
Spending so much time with AI, you've turned into a robot.
Yeah, I can't pretend not to be a robot. But I do. Luckily, I do have a video where this actually they work. Oh, there you go. Okay, so, maybe QuickBooks is getting smarter and it's actually noticing that this is being used by operator and it's making it a little bit more stringent. Like who knows? Okay, so once I took control, and I took control, and now it should be finally be logging into QuickBooks. So Nicole's question was, can you show me something that we typically do, which is automating an accrual or an adjustment or something like that. So I could say something like, go in the balance sheet and take a look at my accounts receivable and make a journal entry to adjust it by half, picking the top customers as the ones we're going to assign the journal entry to. Something that I just basically give it a random task. But what's interesting about this, and I'm just going to show this live because this is really where stuff gets interesting, which is at some point, again, in the near future, after they go through this experiment, where I'll feel secure and safe to doing this is when this is doing it in my browser, in my physical browser that's in my computer, not in this sort of virtual browser, because I kind of want to see what's going on. But I'm not using my hands at the moment. I gave it this ambiguous task. I go into the balance sheet, take a look at my accounts receivable, make a journal entry, adjust it by half, picking my top customers as the ones you're going to assign the journal entry to. The bot actually reads the website and acts like a human. Okay, you asked me to go to a balance sheet. So it goes into the reports menu. Then it goes into the balance sheet. Then it pulls up the balance sheet. Now it might ask me, as of what date should the balance sheet be, or maybe it just implies it. It looks like it did read accounts receivable, and now it's looking for a journal entry, right? So the accounts receivable is 5,281. Now I went in there and created a journal entry. Again, I didn't tell it a specific date. Like if I tell it to do a specific date, it will do that. And it starts trying to figure out, just like a human would, to discover what to do. And like I said, once I see this stuff work in my browser, not in this web browser, that's when I'll feel very, very good about automating certain tasks. But it's doing it and it's figuring things out. The other big realization that I had as a software developer myself, and what I mean by that is I actually don't code anything, but as a person that's sort of dabbled in software development, is software has not been designed to work for robots. Right? Software has designed to work for humans. Now, when operators come into play, developers have to now work within the assumption that uh, these agents are going to be created and software needs to be developed for it to be friendly for a robot to work, because there's going to be a combination of human work and robot work. Like if you look here on the left side, it's actually pretty interesting. It's looking for an account called bad debt, but it can't find it. Okay. That's the logic, right? So if you're going to adjust accounts receivable, you're going to do a bad debt. So it took the decision upon itself to create an account called bad debt. I haven't even interrupted, and it's going through and trying to figure out what is the best possible option for bad debt, and it's all doing this for me. It's picking the detail type, is doing this. So this stuff is right now, it's not very practical, again, because I don't trust it enough to put my user ID and password of my actual real QBO account and have it log in. But I will be extremely excited when this happens. So it stopped at this point, and it said, hey, I prepared a journal entry by crediting accounts receivable to bad debt. Should I confirm the journal entry? And then I can give it additional instructions. Like I say, just pick a customer at random in the name list under accounts receivable so you can save the journal entry. So I give it additional instructions for that. And again, the point is, once you train it, okay, and this is sort of part of the training where we give it all the quirks. I can't do an adjustment in QuickBooks unless I pick a customer. Once we train it, we tell it what to do, just like a human would, just like an intern would. It would. So I'm going to click confirm, and it will do that. So like your question is, can you have it automate accruals and journal entries at the end of the year? Very soon. Very soon. It might be a year or two, but again, once I feel I have control over this operator, I would be a lot more excited than what I am now. But I am excited for the prospect, because you're actually watching a robot kind of manipulate a computer, which technically you don't have to. You don't have to see it do all that, right? Like robots, like we think of robots as physical things that have to like move the way humans do. When it comes to web, all this stuff happens sort of behind the scenes, but they designed it. They designed it this way. That way, it's something that we can interpret, right? Like I said, because if it's just happening in the background via APIs and stuff, it is going to be the future, which is how automated how Zapier works and that sort of thing. Once everything happens in the background, you won't visually see this happening. It will just happen. The thing is that you might have to go through the process of having it visually go through it, just like you would train a human, to see where it's making a mistake. And you can tell it, use the logic that you understand, not API logic. You use human logic, which is click here, click there, to train it. And then it'll translate that into API logic, and it'll
Sorry, Hector, we lost you there.
What's the last part you heard?
You were just we talk about the training, but I think we got the gist of the point coming across. But yeah, this is certainly the future, and it is happening very fast. I think unfortunately we're out of time now, but this has been really useful. But what I want to end with is, given that it's going so fast, what are you most excited about, let's say in the coming year, with the way AI is going, and how do you see that being applied for yourself in your firm and to other firm owners? I think we've lost you, Hector. Apologies if you are watching this and you can no longer see Hector. There seems to be a technical glitch. But hopefully you got value from today's session. If you are doing anything with AI that is helping you in terms of how you run your firm, you're saving time, then put it in the comments as well. I think Hector is just back, so we're going to bring him back on again. Hector, we had lost you there, but you're back on now. So yeah, just to end with, Hector, what are you most excited about in terms of AI use cases for the accounting profession?
Well, oddly enough, you can hear me okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So what I'm most excited about is accountants becoming software developers. Okay. And And this is what I mean by that. I can almost tell you that I think that our future is it's strictly to become software developers. And I don't mean software developers like knowing code. I mean software developers like reimagine what software looks like. So I'll give you an example. Something I was playing with recently is I went into Claude, and Claude is really good at coding. And I said, here, Claude, here's a P&L, here's a balance sheet, here's an AR agent report, here is a AP agent report, here's a general ledger. Like I just basically uploaded a bunch of reports, like the typical reports of the report stack that we would send to a client. And I said, help me develop an interactive BI Explorer tool that gives me all sorts of interesting, fun ways to visualize data and discover my data. As a CPA, I want to revolutionize the way financial statements are presented to accounting clients. And literally within like 2 minutes, it created a sort of a web page, so to speak, an interactive web page, so to speak, that you can work with. And it created all sorts of really funky ways to visualize the data. Okay. So what I think, and here's some key insights. Here's a list of the reports that it loaded. So what I think is going to end up happening is we, with AI being able to code so quickly, we should be able to customize the UI experiences that every one of our customers get. So one of the major trends of the last 10 years or so has been, get cloud accounting get cloud client management software and have a consistent experience throughout. Like every customer sees the documents the same way, every customer sees the portal the same way, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm thinking is that the next level of accounting software, I want to say both accounting and client facing software, whether CRM or practice management, will have a certain level of flexibility where we can tell the AI, listen, this customer works in a restaurant and I need everything to be visualized for a restaurant. No, don't give them a regular P&L and balance sheet. Give them something that they understand and ask me questions that are going to make the information richer. And the AI is going to go back and tell you, well, how many tables do you have? How many chairs do you have? What times do you open at? Do you sell desserts? Do you sell beer and wine? And then revisualize, reimagine the data for that user. I think that we can be the pilots or the co-pilots, no pun intended, of our customers' experience into understanding their numbers. That's what I'm very, very excited about, because you can within minutes, again, upload a bunch of reports and then tell it how you want the data to visualize. And in this one, I didn't even tell it how I didn't even design that I wanted. All I said is, call it BI Explorer, and I want to revolutionize the way the data is being. Imagine going deeper and say, you know what? Give me 10 tabs, not 5 tabs. And I want one of them to show me, I want financial ratios at first. I want graphs first. I don't want graphs. I want a scorecard. So like imagine where you tell it in regular language, it writes all the code for you. This is all code. It writes all the code for you, and then you click on preview and done. And what's really cool is you can publish it. And again, this is for testing purposes, of course, but you can publish it. And then once you have the link, you can, go into, just go into incognito window and then go into a link, and it's in a public link where you can have other people look at it. I'll put it, I don't know if you can share that somewhere in the comments, Reza, maybe for people that are watching this afterwards, but people can go into that link and kind of explore it. And this thing, again, was built in minutes. So again, imagine a future where you use AI to completely customize the report delivery and advisory experience, so you don't have to comport to even the best version of all the practice management softwares that do this in a standard way. I think that people are going to be able to choose their own adventure, so to speak, when it comes to visualizing data, because it'll be so easy for us to do it, because you don't have to know any code. All you have to do is be able to say verbally what's in your mind, in what you're imagining. So that's what I'm excited about. I think this is going to be it's going to be the next level of accountants and AI working together.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem very exciting in Indeed, and I think also represents a challenge for lots of software vendors in the profession who have got software which creates these lovely visuals and reports and charts. And if we can do it through prompting AI, then they've certainly got a challenge in their hands to innovate their products to make them not become obsolete through the advent of AI. But let's leave it there. I know you could talk for hours, Hector, on AI if you if you could. So if people want to find out more about what you do and where you talk about AI, what should they do?
The easiest thing would be just to check out my YouTube channel. Just search me up, Hector Garcia CPA. I do combination of AI topics for the accounting profession. I do a lot of QuickBooks stuff. I do some tax stuff. If you're not in the United States, that might be boring. You can skip to the tax stuff. But mostly the QuickBooks stuff and the AI stuff is stuff that's highly relevant. Sometimes I talk about like pricing and practice management, and I'm on a mission. I'm on a personal mission to help rebrand the profession so it's sought after as the most innovative, creative, and forward-looking of all professions. It's a really big task, but it's a task that I will die, and it will be in my grave that he died trying to do this. Okay, because our profession currently needs to be rebranded. People are saying, "Oh, we're going to get replaced by robots." No, the work that we do today will be replaced by robots. We are not. All we have to do is rebrand, right? So we have to rebrand as the most human of all professionals that leverage AI for the boring stuff, but leverage relationships and relationship building for the stuff that requires the human touch. So if we just flip it on his head and say, yep, all of our work got replaced by AI, but the people didn't. So if we can rebrand as or reposition ourselves as that, I think we're going to be okay.
Absolutely. 100%. Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you very much, Hector, for spending this time with us today. I hope you've had value if you've been attending live. If you're catching up on the recording, feel free to put your questions in the comments and tag in Hector. And if he's around, I'm sure he will be happy to answer. What I'm going to do very quickly is the report that Hector made. I'm going to copy it into the comments. So if you attended, you can see that now appearing in the comments section. Otherwise, take care. Have a great end of the day, everyone. And I'll catch up with you again very soon. Take care. Bye for now.